coming up, so please sit down and with your drinks, and we'll get started here. So, if I can have your attention, we want to stay on time so that we finish on time later today. So, our next presentation is called Develop and Continuously Deliver Side-by-Side Extensions of SAP S/4HANA. Sorry, I have to read this. I don't know memorize. Our speaker is Ekaterina Kruse. Did I pronounce it right? So, Ekaterina Kruse, a good mixture of Russian and German names. It's cool. So, Ekaterina is a partner manager for the SAP S/4HANA Cloud SDK. Some of you may actually have seen her at our SAP Stammtisch event that we held recently at Google. That was Ekaterina's event. And she's driving SAP partners and customer projects. She ensures the effective technical implementation of SAP S/4HANA extensions with the SAP S/4HANA Cloud SDK and SAP Cloud Platform. That's a mouthful. But
thank you.
So, welcome, Ekaterina.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for the introduction and also for the opportunity to present at this great event. So I would like to talk with you regarding or about the topic of the SAP S/4HANA Cloud SDK and about the best practices of extensibility of SAP S/4HANA system, but also other SAP solutions like Business Suite. So before we get started, short question, who have ever heard about the S/4HANA Cloud SDK before? Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So who have ever used it and tried it out a little bit, saw tutorials or things like this? So a little bit less, so that's very good. That means that the introduction part that I will do today will be also useful for participants in this presentation. So before I get started and introduce the SDK and the extensibility principles, I would like to quickly introduce the department at SAP I'm coming from. So I'm working at SAP, and the organizational unit where I have started to work at 3 years ago in Germany is located in Potsdam. So who have ever been in Potsdam, by the way? And who of you have visited the Innovation Center in Potsdam? Well, you have to. So next time when you go to Potsdam, just pay attention to this great building. It's really a nice location. And actually the location was formed relatively not that long ago, in 2013. And this is one of the SAP labs or innovation centers at SAP where we drive like new topics like cloud development, corresponding development experience for the cloud, but also SAP Leonardo related activities and integration like machine learning, blockchain topics, etc. So this is where these topics are derived. At the moment, there are around 300 employees in this location, so it's still relatively, not that huge, but still sufficient to drive those topics that are very important for SAP. In particular, what are our organizational units? So we are not only the part of the Innovation Center, but we are also a part of the S/4HANA Development Organization. And our mission is to look for frameworks and tools and also development experience for so-called side-by-side extension of SAP solution, meaning extending solutions using SAP Cloud Platform, where the runtime of the application is SAP Cloud Platform and the application is integrating with the core system via APIs or messages or any other communication means. So in our organizational units, we have built several SAP Cloud Platform-based applications. Just to name a few, SAP Real Spend, SAP Financial Statement Insight, Cloud for Real Estate. All of those apps are running in SAP Cloud Platform Neo or Cloud Foundry and integrating with S4. So while building those apps, we have noticed some programming patterns that we actually have to repeat every time when we do the developments. That related to security, to the integration, to building OData queries, to building SOAP queries, to retrieving the results, serialization, deserialization, and all the other kind of boilerplate code that we write in backend. And in order to simplify the job of other developers in our community, in like an internal organization, but also for partners and customers, we packed these best practices and knowledge that we got here into the software development kit, which is basically the set of Java libraries and JavaScript libraries that you can use out of the box. You can download them for free and just use them in your development projects. So as I have mentioned, we are in our team focusing on the side-by-side extensibility, and the SDK, or software development kit, that we provide is currently supporting two programming languages, Java and JavaScript. So we are focusing on those, and Java programming language for the SDK, or SDK for Java, is already around for more than 1 year. We also have several reference partners that are using this component. JavaScript is really new, so it was just released at TechEd, and this is still in beta version. But if you're interested in programming in Node.js, for instance, your backend components, that can be also a very good option to evaluate these components. So today's talk, I would like to focus on Java component and do some also hands-on demo with it. Before I introduce the SDK itself, let's quickly recap the basics of extensibility of S/4HANA solutions and Business Suite solutions. First of all, I would like to quickly compare the old world, or how we have developed and built extensions in SAP Business Suite and ABAP, with the new concepts that SAP introduced. So in the classical extensibility scenarios, we have often modified SAP components like tables or functional modules, etc. Or we have built some components in custom namespace, directly accessing the standard SAP objects. So the problem with this approach is that every time when SAP does an upgrade of the system, so migrate to the new version, you probably have to invest some time into adapting the code of the extension. It can take some time, it can take some effort, and obviously costs as well. So noticing this problem, SAP came up with new, completely new model for extensibility. Basically, there are two approaches that you can use for complete decoupling of extensions from SAP core. And those both approaches you see here on the right-hand side on top. One of them is called side-by-side extensibility. And this means that the application extending S/4HANA or Business Suite is running in SAP Cloud Platform and is integrating with S4 or with a Business Suite via standard APIs, which are basically the contract between your application and the S/4HANA system, which are documented in API Business Hub and which stay stable with updates. So you don't have the pain of adapting adopting your software every time when SAP upgrades the backend with this approach. The second approach is also helps to separate the extension from the core, but in this case, you build the extension directly in S/4HANA system. It's in app extensibility. There is a set of tools, set of Fiori application that help to, for instance, extend existing business object, add new fields, add new business object directly in S/4HANA core. But SAP, with the help of these tools, ensures that this extension are happening in your custom namespace. So again, you are completely safe, and you use this approach when you do the upgrades also. There is still for on-premise edition, so the lower right box, for on-premise edition, there is still an opportunity to do the same old good SE80, accessing all the tables and doing all the things that we did in ABAP before. In on-premise S/4HANA system, it is still possible. Nevertheless, it is not that recommended due to this decoupling reason. So today in my talk, I would like to focus on this particular option. So we are talking about side-by-side extensibility, where we build the application in SAP Cloud Platform and integrate with S/4HANA via APIs. So now the question is, when I decided to build my side-by-side extension in SAP Cloud Platform, how can I do it? How can I get started with this? First of all, it's of course important to mention that SAP Cloud Platform supports several runtime environments, different programming languages, containers that you can use for your development. So we have heard a lot about Java, JavaScript, programming languages in SAP already. There is also ABAP language announced, and there is a lot of talks during today's event also regarding the ABAP. So I'm happy to present you also something that we prepare for Java and JavaScript for those who prefer those programming languages. So the framework that you can use when you build backend in SAP with Java or JavaScript is called the SAP S/4HANA Cloud SDK. And this slide gives a rough overview or high-level overview of the components that we have there. They are highlighted with orange. So on a high level, we have two components. One of them is the set of Java libraries, basically delivered via Maven Central, free of charge. You can just download them when you start development and building your Maven project in Java. Or if you're talking about JavaScript, it's still in beta version, so you can download it at the moment using the service marketplace when you sign test and evaluation agreement. So those Java libraries, we will investigate a little bit more in details in the demo. In addition to this, we have not only the development help, so not only the Java libraries, but also continuous delivery, continuous integration toolkit that you see on the right-hand side here. And this component includes basically two parts. The first part is pre-configured Jenkins server delivered in Docker containers, so while in containers, because usually when you set up your continuous delivery with Jenkins, you need to do some actions like configuring ports, configuring volumes, and so on and so on. And so to reduce this pain of configuration of continuous delivery toolkit, we provide this pre-configured continuous integration tool. But also this component contains the best practice for continuous delivery pipeline, including the phases like build, test, quality checks, and deployment in SAP. We'll also take a brief look into this component during the demo. So talking about the concrete components of the SDK libraries that we have, so we can talk about a few of them. There are main building blocks that we can see in the SDK. The first one, and one of the most important one, which also follow from the SDK name, is the SAP integration component, or S/4HANA integration component. This one includes the so-called virtual data model of the SDK. And virtual data model is the set of classes, interfaces, and methods that you can use to communicate with OData services Java natively. So you don't need to write OData queries like strings in your Java code anymore. You don't need to deserialize response by yourself when you write the OData query, because this library takes care of this. So we will see in the demo how you can do this. The second component that is included into the SDK is the set of SAP Cloud Platform abstractions. So this includes the simplification of accesses to SAP Cloud Platform services like audit login, tenant information, user information, etc. So that basically provides also simplification on the SAP Cloud Platform side, but also simplifies the migration from one platform to another. For instance, if you develop the application for SAP Cloud Platform Neo and later want to use it in Cloud Foundry, you can just use those abstractions to quickly migrate without many changes in the source code. The next component is the introduction of resilience and fault tolerance framework. So when we are talking about side-by-side extension, it's a distributed system, and we of course need to take care about the resilience here. So if there are some networking issues or some system is not available, we need to provide corresponding response to user. And to make this possible for application developer, we introduce the resilience fault tolerance framework. We use the Hystrix framework from Netflix here, but also adapt this Hystrix framework for SAP Cloud Platform and make it tenant aware. The next point, or the next component that is important to mention, is the best practices for caching of responses. Again, often in the distributed environment, in a side-by-side extension, your application can run in one data center, and S/4HANA system can reside, for instance, on-premise on customer data center, and you need to consider the network latency here as well. And for this purpose, sometimes caching of some data can be useful. We understand this, and of course, we provide the best practices for caching and corresponding mechanism that we utilize in the SDK and that you can reuse in your app. We are using Google Guava here behind the scene. Also, we do some adaptations to open source frameworks that can be handy in cloud platform development, such as feature toggling or Eclipse Link adaptation for multi-tenancy, etc. And finally, also some help for testing and continuous delivery. So there are some mocking capabilities introduced, even a small S/4HANA mock server for business partner API that you can also use free of charge. So those are components on a very high level without deep dive so far. And I would suggest just to make our hands dirty and do some technical demos and to take a look how you would start with the SDK. First of all, starting from scratch, building a very first, very small Hello World application that is able to run an SAP Cloud Platform just in a few minutes. After that, I would like to extend this application with S/4HANA integration, building the data query to S/4HANA system, using the virtual data model of the SDK. And finally, we will also take a quick look at the continuous delivery, so how you can use this pre-configured Jenkins that we provide for continuously delivering those changes that we do in the app. So let's start with that. And I would like to, first of all, mention the following. So if you just Google for S/4HANA Cloud SDK or go to our product page, sap.com/S4SDK, you can easily find the set of tutorials that we provide for developers here. So obviously, we use SAP Community for those tutorials. It's a very nice way also to collaborate with other developers to get feedback immediately on the tutorials that we have. And here you find many blogs, many articles related to the SDK, but one of the most important particularly for developers are those tutorials that you can find. And this is basically the step-by-step guide, how to get started with the SDK and how you can build the first Hello World app for various runtime environments, for various platform editions, but also how to integrate a S4 system, make it resilient, and so on. So continuously introducing more and more cloud qualities in the app. So now let me just imagine I'm a software developer who wants to get started with SDK and I don't know how to do this. So I would just use one of the blogs, Hello World for Cloud Foundry, using with SAP Cloud Platform Cloud Foundry. And I would like to understand how I can get started with that. So in those blogs, we usually describe the setup in general. And I can quickly take a look at this. The main point in this Hello World application would be the generation of the project from the template or from the Maven archetype, basically the project template that we provide. SDK contains a set of templates that you can reuse, for instance, one for Neo, one for Cloud Foundry, and for various Java runtimes like Spring or Java EE. You can select the one that you prefer. I can take just this one, so this particular Maven comment from my blog post to generate the Hello World application for, I didn't copy this, so for Cloud Foundry in Java EE runtime. So let me quickly, yeah, that's easier. Good. Perfect. So now I have started the generation of the project from the template, and this retrieves corresponding template artifact from Maven Central repository and generate the project from, so let me just quickly rather do it in a different IDE or in a different system. So I can basically use any, yeah, that's nice. Good, copy. Good. It's the first time it's happening this. When you do live demo, you always have to be ready for those things. Good. Good, so very nice. I do the following. So we go to the command line here, and we do cd c SDK demo. And we use Hello World. Good, so I copy it there, hopefully. I hate it. Wonderful. Good, now we made it. So what is happening now? The system gets the Maven archetype from the Maven repository, so I will put my name of the group ID and artifact ID, calling it SDK demo, and agree on all other properties like the version. So now the project is generated. Let me just put it into my IDE so we can quickly investigate its structure. I will load it from existing sources here, and here basically I can see already this SDK demo project that I have just generated from the SDK archetype, and using the Java 8 here. Good, so while it is loading, we can also quickly build the project here in the IDE. So I'm just using Maven clean install for that. So while it is building the project, we can take a look at the project structure. So the structure that you see here in the project is generated from the template that we provide in the SDK. So those folders that are here, they are copied from those templates. So you have the application folder where the business logic goes into, and basically you can see here already the first Hello World class introduced. But also there are folders for integration and unit tests, so testing is very important. Of course, we provide those tools that you can use here for integration testing and unit testing, and there is also already a predefined first Hello World integration test that tests this Hello service that is provided in the template. So basically what I would do after that as a developer of this application, if I want to extend it, I would just extend, so add some additional source code here in the source folder. So now it's actually already the build project, and I have the archive running, so I can just deploy it in Cloud Foundry, or I can also run it locally using Maven Tommy run. And this will deploy this application in my local server, but I can, as I mentioned, already run in an SAP Cloud Platform and see this first Hello World response. Of course, I need to go to the application folder for that. And I will see the Hello World response from the servers. So what is also important to mention, when you generate the project from the Maven archetype that the SDK provides, we already have all the necessary SDK dependencies in place. But you can also use some particular component of the SDK modules directly in your already existing Java project, just by adding those dependencies into your POM file, if you would like to have that there. So let's give it another minute to start, and we can quickly check the application running in my local host. Let me just check if it's already maybe available there. Maybe it takes another minute to start. Should be on localhost 8080. Yeah, so the application is running already, obviously, and we can quickly navigate to this hello URL responding us with the hello world as this was done. But this is not the side-by-side extension yet. It's just a standalone application running currently locally that can be deployed on SAP Cloud Platform as well. So now let's move forward and make it really the real application that is running in SAP and integrating with SAP S/4HANA system. What I will do for that, I will introduce the virtual data model query that helps to retrieve the data from SAP S/4HANA system in the application. So actually I have already extended this app a little bit, and this is the same project structure that you can see here. However, I have introduced the front end to the application in a special web app folder, and also some backend services like additional servlets, like address servlet that is able to introduce the information for addresses of business partners, and business partner servlet that is retrieving the data regarding the business partners from S/4HANA system. The application is already deployed on SAP Cloud Platform, and this is my current state of the app. So basically, we can see the front end, which is written SAP UI5, but there is no data retrieved from S/4HANA system yet, so it's empty. Obviously, the query is not implemented to the S/4HANA system. So let's investigate why it is happening and how we can fix this. So as I have mentioned, we have this business partner API here in place, and it implements the do-get methods, or get methods of HTTP. And when we retrieve the old business partner, it delegates the logic to business partner command. This command is supposed to return a list of business partners from S/4HANA, but currently it is returning the empty collection. So what we need to do here is to go to S/4HANA, retrieve business partners, and retrieve this business partner back here in this method. How we can do this? So normally, if I don't have the SDK, I would need to investigate SAP API Business Hub for that. So who knows about the API Business Hub in the round? Good. So this is the catalog of all SAP services that are whitelisted in S/4HANA Cloud system that you can use for your development and for the integration with S/4HANA. For instance, when I go to S/4HANA Collection, I can also look for the business partner API that I want to integrate in my app, and can quickly find the OData service for business partner. Here I can see all the entities that are associated with the service and all the corresponding methods that I can execute on these entities, like get, post, and so on. So I can also generate a code snippet if I like for any language that I want to use, but obviously this code snippet can potentially need some refactoring for productive use, right? So we do have some strings here, some manual OData query building and so on. So let's see how we can write this query to this OData service using the SDK components. I will do it right now on the fly, and let's see if Java likes me now. So we just do return. I would like to note that here in the class we have the business partner service entity that we can use immediately, and this interface, business partner service, it's coming from the SDK dependency. And if you take a look at the Java doc, it actually references exactly this business partner API and API Business Hub that I have just shown. So basically we take the catalog of API Business Hub that we have and generate these classes and interfaces for all of those so that you can communicate with those APIs in Java native way. I just use this service variable here and immediately can see all the methods available in API Business Hub for this service. For instance, get all business partners that I want to execute. So this method returns me the helper that helps me to build the OData query again in the Java Fluent native APIs. Can say, for instance, the fields that I want to select, like returning just the ID of the business partner first name, and the business partner last name. I can also do things like filtering, for instance, so every method that is available in OData protocol, of course, is available here in Java Fluent API for me, like business partner category, for instance, equal to, for instance, persons, just to retrieve only persons. I can also, of course, do all the methods like order by, etc., and I can execute the query to retrieve the final result. So let me just build this query quickly, or quickly build the new version of the application. So now we expect, after deploying this application, that it will go to the S/4HANA system and retrieve those business partners. And we did it just in a few lines of code. So maybe one question that you can ask yourself here, we do execute the query, but we don't specify in particular S/4HANA system or Business Suite system we are talking to here. And here we do the separation of concern. We don't program the authentications, the URLs, etc. in Java code. We do this customizing in SAP Cloud Platform, and SDK does this boilerplate code like authentication, basic or principal propagation, or the communication related to various platform additions related to destination service, etc. behind the scene for you. So I can quickly show you also how it looks like later. So let's give it another try. Also important to mention, of course, I have introduced new functionality here. We also encourage every developer to write corresponding integration tests for you for that, and we also have corresponding blog posts describing how to do this with the SDK. So the app is built, so let me just quickly push this to SAP Cloud Platform Cloud Foundry. Actually, I'm using the command line for this as I'm already logged in my account here, but you can also use the cockpit for this as well. So just a quick look in the customizing of my SAP Cloud Platform here. So this is my account. And this is where you can also customize the destination service for your application. As I have mentioned, we didn't do any particular configuration in Java code, and here exactly where you configure your backend S/4HANA system, we use this default ERP query endpoint property. So if you execute query without any property, that this one will be taken, but you can also create several destinations and to talk to various systems within one app running in SAP. So let me quickly check when the app is deployed. So let's give it another few seconds. And while it is deploying, I would like to again highlight what we have just done. So this is the source code that you have seen in API Business Hub, and this is already it does a lot, right? So we need to build the HTTP query, we need to do the OData query, deserialize the response, do all the authentication things. And this is the lines of code that we need to write with the SDK, and the SDK handles all this boilerplate code for you. It's just an example of one single component, but there are much more to see in the SDK if you are interested. For instance, if you talk to BAPIs in on-premise system from Cloud Platform, or you want to call SOAP services, we have support for SOAP services, so some of the whitelisted APIs are also SOAP, and there are some particularities regarding to this, so there are some simplification in libraries there as well. So the app is deployed. Let's quickly check the final result. So here, obviously, the business partners are coming back, so we quickly fixed this integration, and those business partners that we see on the left-hand side, this is just this list query that I have just implemented. Those are business partner returned from the S/4HANA system. So last but not least, I would like to mention the continuous delivery toolkit. I have mentioned that we provide this component, and in this component what we deliver is this continuous delivery pipeline. It's blue ocean notation that you can see in the new Jenkins 2.0. So we pre-configure the Jenkins server. All you need to have is to have your own Linux server in place, and also install Docker software, and you can just use in one particular script that we provide in the SDK, install this Jenkins server there, and also install this continuous delivery pipeline. And in this continuous delivery pipeline, there are some phases that you can execute, including the quality checks that we recommend for Java and JavaScript code that can be later be useful when you do, like for instance, when somebody does the premium certification or certification of the application. Yeah, so last thing that I would like to mention, so Java libraries are around for a year. We have some customers and partners that give us feedback on these libraries, and JavaScript library for the SDK are just starting developing, or it's now beta, so if you would like to be one of the first who evaluates this, just feel free to reach out to us. And of course, 30 minutes is not enough to cover everything, so we have much more things to provide. We have the book released at Sapphire, Extending SAP S/4HANA with S/4HANA Cloud SDK, available since Sapphire, as I have mentioned, covering all those topics, but also free learning opportunity on OpenSAP. This is the course covering SDK topics, but also in general in the app side-by-side extensibility of S4. Very good format, so 1 hour per day, 4 weeks, learning a lot of things free of charge and just having fun there. Yeah, with that said, I would like to thank you for your attention and talk to you offline.
Do we have time for just 1 or 2 questions quickly? Yeah. Does anyone have a question? Here we go.
So with these libraries, we are currently supporting SAP Cloud Platform, Cloud Foundry, and Neo. We are also investigating now in the direction of Kubernetes. Potentially can be support for other platforms, but no particular timeline regarding this. At the moment, it's Cloud Platform, SAP Cloud Platform, Neo, and Cloud Foundry.
And the backend system can also be an S/4HANA on-prem.
Right, right. It's just the difference in configuration of ERP query endpoint at the end. And,
Any other quick questions? Yeah? Ekaterina will still be here throughout the day, so maybe we can follow up in other breaks. So we'll thank you very much, Ekaterina, for the excellent presentation. Danke.
Thank you.